What up, y'all? It's Alex, and today we are doing Synth 77 by Kalkbrenner. It's one of my favorite tracks from him, and yeah, it's great. Before we launch, I just want to let you know a Patreon page is up now, so thank you for the people who have signed up for that so far. And also, Response 002 was just released. Sitting at Home was a single by myself, so if you want to go check that out, go to the description. There's a couple floppy disks remaining because, yes, I put it on floppy disk. Proceeds go to some good Detroit-based groups, so go ahead and check that out. Awesome. So first off, the track is going to start with these beautiful chords, and this is just nice chord progression. Okay, so first thing to note, the chord progression is an 8-bar cycle, so this track's going to function on 8-bar cycles, and we hear it one time through, and then we hear it again, and this time we get the addition of a nice melody. I'll call it melody 1, just very pretty sounding. Sounds like I'm going to have some like ping pong delay on there. Pretty simple stuff, but really nice. And then after 8 bars, we're going to hear a little snippet of the melody, but then the white noise. I don't know if this is actually made out of white noise, but if I were going to make a hat like this, the first thing I would do would be to reach for white noise. So as we have the third cycle coming in, we're now having the introduction of the white noise hi-hat, which gives us a little bit more of a rhythm and like kind of something to start bobbing our head to a little bit more as we anticipate more elements. But yeah, this intro is really just milking this chord progression. So let's hear what's going on now. Awesome. So this is very it's pretty simple about what's going on so far. So basically, as we keep repeating this chord progression, like I said, we have the white noise hi-hats come in, then we're going to introduce the bass line because we just want to keep it interesting, so adding stuff helps us do that in this case. And after we get what looks like the fourth cycle of the chord progression, we're going to start picking it up a little bit more dramatically by having the snap come in as well as the kick. And notice how they just make their appearance right before their the main chunk in which they're full on. So if you never do this when you're producing, if you are a producer, maybe try this, introducing the drums right before they're coming in like full on. It's just kind of nice. The snap is just on the 2 and the 4. The kick is just on every beat. And then pads that come in here seem more like this blanket, this pad that is just really surrounding the rest of the track. And yeah, I feel like this really just adds a lot of atmosphere. So okay, so let's keep listening and let's see what happens. love this track. Okay, so it's so simple. That's the thing. Like as we were playing this, I was just thinking to myself, it's giving me similar thoughts to the thoughts I had on Veritas Quo, where in some ways this track is extremely simple. It's just a chord progression with a simple drum beat and a few melodies that are just going to be placed and mixed and matched in different ways, but nothing like insane happening. But even still, like, that's what I mean. On the one hand, yeah, it's very simple. You can see how it's done. You can map it out. But at least from what I have been exposed to, not many people can. It's like you can have a simple recipe to make, I don't know, some fancy dinner. Like, there's a recipe out there, but only a few people are going to make that dinner fucking banging. So, yeah. But okay. So now we have everything going on here. Like I said, those pads come in, grooves fall on, and now we're going to get a reintroduction of melody 1, and then it's going to be side by side this twinkle melody / melody 2. And if you notice, these notes seem to be doing a good job just like complementing the chord progression. So see how they kind of just listen to how this moves very much with the chord progression. Cool, right? A very simple trick done all the time, but it's effective and it's dope. So basically, you're now going to have this 8-bar thing, this 8-bar chord progression with these melodies 1 and 2 happening twice, which is cool. But again, eventually we're going to get bored of that. So why not introduce a new melody to listen to? I put crying melody because to me, it makes me think of that. The song does make me tear up often. But I think also just the way this synth or whatever it is sounds, I'm guessing it's a synth, it just, to me, it sounds like someone's crying or something. And so we're going to have a dropout of melody 2, and then melody 3 is going to take over. And let's listen to what melody 3 does. You'll see that there's kind of like 2 parts to it. Okay, so cool. So first off, crying melody / melody 3 comes in. Melodies 1 and melody 2, I don't know what happened there, drop out. And you'll notice at the beginning, this yellow part, it's kind of just low and creeping. We also get a drop out of the kick. At this point, you have the introduction of melody 3. The drop out of the kick really helps introduce it because, the kick is a huge part of this track. So when you drop it out, your brain goes, whoa. And so now we got melody 3 coming in. It's creeping low, and then it's going to go high and get more dramatic. And then we're going to bring in some new drums and keep things moving. cool. Notice again, it sounds like he has that kick happening right before, which is just a cool thing. Like we already pointed that out earlier, that's just like a cool trick you can do if you've never done it before. And now when we get to the more dramatic part of the crying melody, you're going to notice we get this like twinkling, I called it accessory percussion, this dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, very high frequency percussion sound. And then we get this kind of like delayed percussion sound. It sounds like a little, yeah, that sounds like there's a little delay on it, some verb. Just, it's cool. And so now we're getting, I mean, this part has a lot of change introduced. And again, I feel like I don't mention it as much as I used to, but so much of why I do this is just to show how songs are constructed in a very macro way and to give producers or just fans like an idea of how these tracks work. So if you're a producer, you can maybe use some of these tricks for yourself, or if you're a fan, maybe you can just, you know, see how this track's done and think it's, just find this interesting, I guess. But yeah, so there's a lot of change happening in this transition from this part to this part, just because the melody gets more dramatic, and then we also get the reintroduction of the kick, and then we also get some new percussive sounds that we haven't heard before. So it's just a lot. And we're just going to groove on this for a while, because why not? It sounds good. It's great. And then after 2 full 8-bar cycles, we're going to move into our last 8-bar cycle. We're going to be very strong on the first 4 bars, and then the melody is going to come back down, just like how it started. Our kick's going to drop out again, which also mimics how it started. So, you know, we get this drama, and then we're going to release it, and then we're going to rebuild. So let's hear what happens. So just like how the drums come in early sometimes, so does this synth. You'll hear it here. The twinkle comes in. Interesting thing, the clap dropped in volume. Listen to it here versus here. Cool, right? So now, again, we're just going to return to having melody 1 and melody 2 playing at the same time. But now as they're playing, what is this? Let's see what the fuck this is. Oh yeah. So we get another, okay, bongo thing. Okay, so basically, so we get the reintroduction of melody 1 and 2. The clap gets quieter. We get this like bongo sound coming in, which is kind of interesting. Listen for that. Sounds like it has some like ping pong delay or something on there. Yeah, and you hear it right there. So now we're getting melody 1 and 2 with accessory percussion and perc verb, and with bongo thing. We've never had melody 1 and 2 with this combination before. If you've watched any of these other videos, you'll probably know that I say that series of like words often, which is, oh, we have melody X, oh, we have lead Y, and it's never been with part A or B before, and now we're getting it. Because this is just what's done in so many of these. I'm calling this a techno track. This is just how it goes. And at least very often this is how it goes, at least the tracks I'm choosing. So cool. So now we're grooving with all this new stuff, and we're just going to keep doing that. The clap's going to get louder again, which adds a little more tension, and then let's see what happens. Cool. So I feel like this slight reduction, or at least this change isn't too dramatic. In some ways it picks up in energy because the clap gets louder, but we also lose the bass line and we lose melody 1. I'm just going to go ahead and say, somehow this section sets us up for this accordion thing. Okay, a very interesting thing happens here, as well as the introduction of the accordion. The chord progression is going to have a bit of a change. I'm going to make this pink. So instead of doing its full 8-bar cycle, just see if you can, we're going to listen to this through, see if you can figure out what's happening. Cool. So basically it just doesn't do its full cycle. It goes do 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 do, and then it just repeats that. Or at least it repeats this chunk rather. So we don't get this ending. Do 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 do. We don't get that. So we're just repeating part of the chord progression, which is pretty cool because it does really, without getting that like this big resolve here at the end, it just creates a different feel. And so this is actually quite a lot of difference happening here, relatively speaking. We're having a new melody, and then we're basically getting a new chord progression. It's just part of the original chord progression, but because of how it repeats, the cycle has a different feel to it, and because it has a different feel, it feels different for us. And then eventually at the end, we get the resolve that we've been getting the whole time. We have some drop out of the drums, and now we're basically kind of going back to basics. This is kind of reminiscent of the intro here. And there we go. Quite a beauty. So, yeah, just to briefly talk about what happened here. We have this 8-bar chord progression, which is going to form the foundation of most of the track except for this part here, in which case this is still kind of, it's just part of this, but whatever. So we have this 8-bar thing. We add stuff, whether that's a melody, then we add some hats, then we add some bass, then we go full on into it. Then we have some different melodies coming into play. I know this isn't different, but melody 2 is different, and we've never heard melody 1, melody 2 happen. So when these both come in, as well as the introduction of like a clap, for example, we just keep this chord progression interesting by just adding, and then we continue to keep it interesting by then substituting different melodies in after these two melodies. And in the meantime, we have, a kick dropping out here and there just to give us a bit of release of some tension. And then we get a build of tension. And then we're going to get a new combination of things here because now we go back to melody 1 and 2, but it's with the new percussion that hasn't happened while these two have happened. For example, look over here, melody 1, melody 2, no new percussion. But over here, melody 1, melody 2. And there it is, as well as that bongo thing. I probably should have pasted this more. I think it keeps happening. I'm not positive. By the way, if you want this project file, email me, wilcox.alexandme.com. I'll send it to you. And so, yeah, after this part, then we're going to get melody 4. And this is where we now kind of shift into briefly for like more of like a 4-bar loop. because now this chord progression, we're just getting part of it. And then we resolve, and then we just have a slow kind of, now we just get a taste of sort of like the intro again, a pretty stripped down version, and the track ends. And it's a great track. Now, hopefully you got something out of this. It's cool. I just love the amount of melodies we have. At least it seems like, especially with a lot of the more old school techno tracks we've been doing, I think have been a little more like bangers. They're often, at least the ones I've chosen for this channel, have been less melodically driven. I like how here we got the chord progression, which you could argue is a melody. We got more pads complementing that, and then we've got like 4 distinct melodies. And yeah, they're really pretty. And they're great. I love this track so much. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, consider becoming a patron on my Patreon. If you sign up, the smallest tier, I'll give you feedback on a track once a month. On the second tier, I'm going to start hosting like little production sessions where I'm going to be producing, and if you want to ask me any questions, you can join and do that. And then on the last tier, you get a private lesson, whether that's mixing, whether that's producing, whether that's arranging, whatever. So, I mean, technically not whatever, but you know what I'm saying, I think. Yeah, so thanks again for watching. Oh, check out the new Response track, Response 002. It's called Sitting at Home. I made it. It's a weird one. I was listening to some like punk music and then just talking with this person who's listening to a lot of like lo-fi music, so I was getting into that. And so yeah, I kind of took like a grungy sort of punk rocky approach to the track. I think it's kind of interesting. But yeah, give it a listen. It's available on floppy disk, and if you buy the floppy disk, then you're going to have your proceeds, or at least after the cost of the floppy and shipping, I believe. I can't remember how I phrased it, but basically a good chunk of what you pay is going to go to the Ruth Ellis Center in Detroit, and then first 3 months of streaming is going to go to the Detroit Justice Center. So yeah, have a good day. Since 77 by Paul Kalkbrenner.